Hello, people of Davisaur's channel. My name is Roman Tacos. I'm an invader. Just kidding. I did this video. You're welcome.
Hey everyone, Davisaur here, and today I'm starting something a little different. I'm going to start making reviews for the vehicles in War Thunder alongside me spading each of them. This will help me understand what it's like to play vehicle stock and spade so I can give people the best advice. This is very similar to what Oxy is doing on his channel, but I'll be covering vehicles in smaller groups of 1 to 2 vehicles depending on their playstyle. And keep in mind this is all coming from a script, so I'm going to sound like a robot and run out of breath. Yeah. I'll also go into the history of each of them and strategies for how to use them. This means that as time passes, I can go back and update videos that are no longer relevant, as well as make new ones for vehicles that have been added. I'll be starting with the British Tier 1 tanks and planes. If these videos do well, we can go on to other nations, and without further ado, enjoy the first episode. Yeah. Oh boy, this is going to be a lot of work. Shit. Hello everyone, Davisaur here. Today, we'll be looking at the A13 Mark 1 and 2. The Mark 1 is a 1.0 reserve vehicle, while the Mark 2 is a 1.3 that you'll have to unlock. Both play fundamentally the same, with mostly the same stats across the board, Mark 2 being a slightly better armored version of the Mark 1, with the two of them being comparable to other light tanks at the same battle rating. Alright, get ready for big sentences. The A13 was the general designation given to a series of British cruiser tanks, these being the Cruiser 3, 4, and 5. The predecessor of these being the Cruiser 1, A9, and Cruiser 2, A10. The main reason for a designation change was that the Cruiser 3 adopted a Christie suspension system, which allowed for better speeds and cross-country performance when compared to the triple bogey system used on the A9 and 10. These new cruiser tanks, the A13 series, would be designed by Morris Commercial Cars and produced by Newfield, with 65 Mark 1s being produced from 1938 to 39, and 955 Mark 2s being produced from 1939 to 41. Overall, the tanks were fast, though under-armored, and unreliable in the field. Mark 1s would be sent to France, Greece, and North Africa, though most would be lost in mechanical-related situations. Mark 2s would fight in France, with most being destroyed or captured in Calais. Most remaining A13 Mark 1s and 2s would serve alongside older A9s and 10s, and would be well liked despite their mechanical and logistical problems. By the end of the North African campaign, most A13s had either been phased out or lost in action. The A13 Mark III, otherwise known as the Covenanter, was produced from 1940 to 43, with 1,771 built in total, though currently is unplayable in War Thunder. Keep in mind, like 90% of this information is just right from Wikipedia, and the other 10% is background knowledge that I have stuck in my brain for some reason. In terms of mobility, the A13 has a good top speed of 48 km an hour, around 30 miles per hour, for both the Mark 1 and 2. It has a weird acceleration, doesn't feel quite right when taking its powerful V12 Liberty engine that spurts out 340 horsepower into account. I'm not entirely sure why this is, but its transmission seems to negatively affect what should be a very fast tank that should accelerate like a BT5 or a Stuart. Speaking of transmission, this traverse is really weird. Oxy uses the term reactionary mobility to describe how responsive a vehicle is to inputs regarding movement, such as whether or not a vehicle immediately turns when you move the joystick, or needs a second before actually moving. I think one of the best examples of this is when you're in 2nd to 5th gear. If you move directly to the left or right, then there's a weird hiccup effect to it, where you don't actually just go to the left, it kind of hiccups over to the left. Speed is good, though typical for the tier, and its traverse and responsiveness is mediocre at best. In terms of firepower, the A13 uses a 40mm 2-pounder gun with a choice of 4 rounds. The Shot Mark 1 AP/T will be the one you start out with. The Shot Mark 9B APC/BC/T is the one with the best penetration values. The Shot Mark 1 AP/HV/T has the best muzzle velocity, and the Shell Mark 1 AP/T is the only one with explosive values. Overall, I aim to use both the Shot Mark 9 and Shell Mark 1 while excluding the other two options since they bring little to justify their use. Keep the Mk.9 loaded in your breech ready to go, as you might run into something that the Mk.1 won't be able to pen. And if the Mk.1 can pen, then just fire the Mk.9 into either the driver or gunner, depending on whether the enemy is about to drive away or blow your ass to kingdom come. After you disable your enemy, fire into somewhere where the Mk.1 can easily pen in order to minimize the chances of bullshit. Keep in mind that you'll come across enemies that even the Mk.9 can't penetrate frontally with ease, like the 2.0 Russians or the fancy cast armored tanks that the French are using. So keeping the Mk.1 in the breach isn't a good idea. All this being said, it's important to recognize the tanks you're fighting, since in case it's an up tier, you're going to be against T-70s and, God forbid, the Swedes, so you'll need to know where your shot Mk.9's 89mm of flat armor penetration value at 10 meters is going to be able to get through. You have a nice snappy reload though, so messing up a shot can be retaliated in a hurry. Turret traverse is okay, but leaves much to be desired. At the end of the day, the A13 is a really good tank to get used to 2-pounder's performance, since you'll be using it all the way to 3.0 on the Churchill 1. So you'll have to learn to dissect some of the tougher tanks quite often. Now, on to survivability, one of the A13's weakest points. I'll keep this one brief, since, simply put, the A13 is basically made of glass. Most of the other tanks you'll be facing aren't much better, but the A13 is truly something of a marvel. The French 37mm that the H35 and R35 use can easily pen your armor, despite being arguably the worst gun of the tier. The Mark II seems to be a little bit more survivable, especially from turret shots, when people seem to think the space armor is part of the superstructure, though you really won't feel that much of a difference. Every once in a while, a shot will miraculously bounce off or not pin your hull, and that's mainly from simply a panic shot or pure luck. But overall, this thing is made of butter. So, how do you play this thing? Well, stock, it's a pain really, and we'll question why you decided to play British tanks in the first place. The first thing you should do is either move with your team or find a good flanking spot. Depending on who you're fighting, the 2-pounder is either going to cut through them with ease, or require a more precise shot if you're going up against something tougher. All this can be negated by simply being able to shoot something from the side, where armor can be less than half the thickness of the front. As such, you should always be looking for opportunities to flank your enemies and finding places to get good side shots on them. This advice is one you could give for any tank, but the A13's mobility really makes it all the more viable. Remember to always stay on the move, as your speed is your armor. By constantly being a moving target, you'll be a pain in the ass to shoot, as the enemy will be worried about messing up a shot, even though you can be penned basically anywhere. This strategy is only better executed spaded, so it'll be wise to rinse and repeat when playing on urban maps with many sightlines. The A13 is a great tank to learn how to flank and spank, so to speak, something that you'll have to do with most tanks in the British tech tree. It's also somewhat viable to just rush in head on, as you might be able to scare the crap out of somebody, as well as net 1 or 2 kills, though this strategy is definitely the least viable. Overall, the A13 works best when it uses great mobility and potent gun to good effect, and is a great tank to start the British tech tree with. And it'll help you decide whether or not you want to suffer through the complete lack of sanity that is the British armor doctrine. So, was that entertaining, or was it just a rip-off of Oxy's videos? Leave a like if you liked it, leave a dislike if you didn't. You know, if you want to, you can subscribe, I guess. Next up is the Fury Mark 1 and 2, or maybe the Nimrod Mark 1 and 2, I'm not sure yet. If you really thought it was terrible, please do, criticize me in the comments so I know if I'm doing something terribly. I think I'm gonna just use TTS for the next video, because I just sound like a hump of garbage. Yeah, that's basically it. Credit to Oxy, of course, for inspiring this, and Critical Chris as well, the Battlefield YouTuber. I've been watching a lot of his old weapon guys lately. Hope you have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and yeah, have a great day, evening, afternoon.